Hello and welcome to this episode of Dead Throne. In this one, we're going to be recapping on all the previous videos. Now, of course, first and foremost, we need to set up the box. So after taking off the lid, you'll find the mechanical market. That gets propped up just behind the bottom of the box, and you use both sides of the slider to slide it down to open the market. After that, you've got all the decks that get placed over the edge of the box so that they line up with the same artwork that's on the front of the box, that is on the top of their own individual decks. After that, you've also got the health boards. There are 2 health boards and 4 slots each. Depending on how many players you use either 1 or 2, and you can place them wherever you want on the table. I tend to put them at the front of the box right there. Of course, you've also got the map itself. The map is made up of 10 hexagonal double-sided tiles. And it's up to you however you want to place them on the table, or maybe some scenarios might have their own unique setup. After that, of course, you need to get the card trays, pick your characters, and depending on the rules of whatever mode or scenario that you're playing, you'll draw any relevant cards. Typically, on the back of each character card, you've got certain starting equipment, and that starting equipment you draw from the market itself. After you've picked your characters, you need to get their max health and their current health markers and place them on the board. Each player starts at 10, but if they have certain armor or for Saladar's region stones that increase their max health, then you increase accordingly. Rillick, for example, starts with light boots, so he would start on 11 because they give him an extra 1 max health. When it comes to the scroll boxes, you put them anywhere around the table. There's 150 scrolls and they can be used amongst everybody. They're not particular to one individual player. Use all of them. You've got 2 dice, and all you do simply to see who begins the game is roll 1 die, and whoever gets the highest number wins. But of course you can do it however you like to do it. Next we'll go on to moving. You roll both dice to move, and whatever the maximum number is, that's what you can roll up to. So in this case I rolled a 5, but I can stop at 3 if I want to, or 2, or I can simply just stay there and interact with the step that I'm currently on. The steps are the individual clusters of stones or grass patches or squares of the wooden planks, depending on which region that you're on. As you're moving around, you move, each cluster is 1 step, and you've also got the quick paths. You step on the quick path as 1 move, and you continue along on the other side of that quick path. It can be considered an elongated step. The only difference is if your last move happens to be on a quick path, then you simply move all the way to the end and interact with whatever you land on there. Other ways of moving around are by going to carriagemen that are outside of the towns. You simply land on one of them, pay them 5 coin, and he will transport you all the way over to another carriageman outside of another town. Another way of transporting around is by using teleport scrolls. These teleport scrolls will have different effects. They'll say either teleport from anywhere in the land to somewhere in Woodmist, for example. But depending on what it says on the card, that's how you teleport yourself around the map instantaneously. Next up is interacting. Wherever you are, there'll be something to interact with. The regions have different levels of difficulty. The field regions can be considered level 1. Next up from that is the docks, which is the water. Next up from that is the woods. And the last one and most difficult one is the rocks region. So wherever you are, you interact with the appropriate deck. So field, you've got the first one on your left here is the field region. You draw a card and you interact with whatever it says. If it's an enemy or if it's an item and so on. There are so many different things that you can interact with. You can also go into a town, and there are certain things to interact with there. You've got the inn, which you heal from. You've got the market, which you interact with the market with. You've got a tavern where you draw your quests, and you've also got the carriageman just outside of the town, which you can transport your way around with. Next thing to touch up on is items. Now, items can be found throughout the land, and you can also buy them in the market. Each item will have a buy price, which is marked by the letter B on the top right, and a sell price, which is marked by the letter S on the bottom right. Depending on how much it costs or how much it sells is how much you either buy it from or sell it to the market. Depending on what the item is, it'll either have an attack or defense or some kind of armor, and they'll all have their own level as well, which is marked by a hexagon with a number inside it. An item can be considered a tool item if it has black text and underneath the text it has a tool symbol on it. That is a one-time use effect. As soon as it's used, the item gets returned to wherever it came from. If it has purple text and a purple glowing crystal below the text, then it is an enchanted item, and that effect can be used indefinitely for as long as you have the item. In order to equip items, you need to have them on your character card or in your inventory, and they have to be standing up. So if it's a weapon, for example, it goes at the front and it stands up and it's vertical. If it's a shield, then it's on the left. If it's a special item, then it's on the right. And if it's an armor card, then it's horizontal. All the armor cards have a horizontal artwork, and you place them in the middle 5 slots that are on your inventory, on your card tray. If you have something in your inventory, then you put it on your bottom left, and you can hold a maximum of 3 items in your inventory. If you happen to have a rucksack, which you can buy from the market, then within that rucksack you can hold a further 5 items. Anything that is in your rucksack, you can't use its effect, and if you lose the rucksack, then you lose it and everything in it. When you're in a battle, you can't equip and unequip items. That can only happen during your own turn. Now we move on to scrolls. Now, of course, scrolls are very important in the game, and there are 150 of them, and typically you would have 3 scrolls at the beginning of your turn, depending on the scenario. You can have a maximum of 8 in your hand, and we consider them like scroll slots because you're constantly filtering through them. Every time you use a scroll's effect, you put it aside and then you replace it on the beginning of your next turn. If during your turn or outside of your turn you don't like a scroll card, then you can simply again discard it, put it aside, and then on the beginning of your next turn you draw a new one. Those discarded scrolls go on top of the deck, so you're constantly filtering through. Now, as I said, you can have a maximum of 8 scrolls, but you can obtain new ones if you go to the market, you buy them for 20 coin, or sometimes you can find them around the land, or you can get scrolls for completing certain quests. Now, all scrolls have to be used on your own turn. The only exception to this are defense, shield, and spell scrolls. Those scrolls can be used during your opponent's turn or your enemy's turn, depending on the scroll's effect. These can be very useful. For example, if someone's attacking you and then you activate a scroll effect during their attack, then you can revert their attack back onto them, which is quite powerful. Another important element of the game is the 4+ rule. Now, this is a really cool function of the game, and it allows players to continue playing without having to wait on other players. As it says, it's 4+, so there has to be 4 or more players in the game. If there are 4 or more players in the game, then anybody who's in a battle or interacting with the market, they do so in their own bubble. This means that other players will simply skip their dice turn and continue working around the seating order as normal, avoiding whoever's currently in a battle or in the market. If you are in a battle, then all you do is simply battle between each other. This only happens with players, by the way, not enemies. They battle back and forth between each other as quickly as they want, and other players simply play around them. If you're in the market, then again, you interact with the market, take your time, and other players continue to move around you. If there are 3 players in a battle, for example, and there's 1 player out of any kind of bubble, then we simply say that you wait about 15 seconds, count in your head, before you can play again. Otherwise, there's too much moving on and it can be a bit chaotic. The 4+ rule also allows for multiple battles to be happening at the same time. So there can be all 4 players in 2 separate battles, and they're battling at the same time in real time, or players can join ongoing battles and turn it into one big battle between all the players in the game. Another cool aspect of the game are battles. First off, I'm going to touch on enemies. So if you do discover an enemy around the land, then they will get the first attack. They attack you, and then it's your turn to attack them. When they attack you, you deduct their attack from your defense. And then when it's your turn to attack, you deduct your attack from their defense. Whoever does the most damage wins the battle. Pretty simple. When battling opponents, it can be more complex. Opponents are players, not enemies. Each battle turn, your opponent will attack, and you can either mitigate if you have certain scrolls, or you'll just simply defend against their attack. Then it's your turn to attack, and it will keep going round like that until someone either dies, their health goes down to 0, or you decide somehow to end the battle either by trading or by coming out to some kind of agreement. Now, when you are doing battles between players, the other players can be playing around you, or they can join the ongoing battle that you're currently having. So you need to be careful how long it takes and how weak you are and what other agendas the other players have. When you are battling opponents though and someone does die, then the victor is allowed to steal up to 3 items. Medallion pieces, region stones and coin, no matter how much, all count as 1 item. So 10 coin counts as 1 item, 3 region stones can count as 1 item, and then 4 medallion pieces, for example, can also count as 1 item. Any items that the victor leaves behind, then the loser can reclaim after they respawn at any inn on their next turn. They can only respawn if they have the right stuff. So for heroes, they need a medallion piece to respawn at the time of death. It doesn't matter if it's stolen, as long as they had one when they died. For Saladar, he needs an active region stone to return. Now when you lose to enemies, it's slightly different. An enemy will always have a level. If they defeat you, as in they took more damage from you than you managed to take from them, then they will take an equal amount of coin to their level. It's the same in reverse, so if you do defeat them, then you will take an equal amount of coin to their level. If you do lose though, they might have a secondary result to their victory. They might say lose item, or lose some kind of weapon, or lose a rucksack, or anything like that. That only refers to what you have equipped. So if they say lose sword, then you will lose the sword that you have equipped. If it says remain 1 turn, then again, that only happens if you lose, you remain 1 turn. If you beat them though, they might have another reward. So on top of the coin that you get, it might say 3 coin, so an extra 3 coin, or it might say a scroll, or some kind of an essence. For example, a bear pelt, that's part of an essence of that bear. So you keep the card as an item, and then you can use that bear pelt to either sell it to the market, or you can summon that bear back into battle for you. When you're in a battle amongst opponents, there are a few ways of getting out of there. One of them is by fleeing. You use both dice, and if you roll a 9 or higher, then you can escape. If you don't roll that 9 though, then your battle turn has ended and you've basically wasted a battle turn, and now it's the next player's turn to attack you. Another way of escaping a battle is by using a teleport scroll. This you have to use on your own turn, and you simply teleport to wherever the teleport says that you can go. Another way of escaping a battle is by trapping all of your opponents. So if all of your opponents are trapped by scrolls or some kind of a trap card, then you can simply use both dice and run away without having to roll any kind of number in particular. Another really cool element of Dead Throne is traps. Now traps can be obtained from the market by paying 5 coin, or in certain scenarios you might actually start with them. The trap is broken down into a few parts. At the top you've got the feature that the trap relates to. If it doesn't have a feature, then it can have a description of how it can be activated. For example, interacting with your chosen victim, or maybe the next player to interact with the market, or something like that. Underneath that big description box, you have also got the location. That means it specifically can be activated in a certain place. In this case, I've got Greylock, so the feature above it is certain crates, which means that it can only be activated on crates that are in Greylock. Now below that, you've actually got the traps effect. The top one is the one that you get unlocked simply because you bought the card. The one below that though, you would need to add some kind of item to it. In this case it says any rope. As long as I attach a rope at some point during the game before it has been activated, then I can increase this traps effect up to level 2. In order to get to level 3, then again it's plus any net. So I attach any net to it, and then it is a level 3 trap. As soon as you have the trap, you put it aside, and as I said, during the game you can put items on it in order to top up its levels. In order for it to be activated though, if it's a feature like this one, then all your victim has to do is walk over it. They don't have to land on it. As soon as they just walk over it, you can say, haha, I trapped you, and you reveal the traps effect to them, to whatever level you have managed to increase it to before it was activated. Another cool element of the game are quests. Now, if you go to a tavern in the towns, or some taverns are around the land, then you draw a tavern quest from the tavern's deck. Now that quest card can be used or completed by anybody. You put them aside and you have to compete for those rewards. If you need to obtain something and take it to them, then the quest itself will tell you what you need and where you need to drop it off. For example, if it says I need a sword and I'm in the ruins of Pale Cliffs, then you go to the loot building within Pale Cliffs, you drop off the sword, and as soon as you do that, you've completed the quest. Some of them will say that you need to return to another tavern, or if they don't say in particular where to return something, then again you return to another tavern. On the bottom it will say what the reward is, or sometimes the reward might be on the back, it will be some kind of item. In which case you pick up that item and you use it however you want to. If it's not an item, then you simply collect the reward and put the quest back. Other quests that you can find are lone quests. Unlike tavern quests, these are quests that you have to complete by yourself. Other players can't complete them for you and they can't steal them from you either. So after you've drawn a lone quest, you'll find that at the top of the card is a short description of what's going on. Below that you've got a couple of directions to take. One of those directions will be keep walking or continue on your journey, something like that. That basically means that you don't want to do the quest, so you put the quest card back and end your turn. If you do want to go on the quest though, then you follow the arrow in the direction that will lead to some kind of reward. Pretty much every step is on the same turn, so you've found the quest and then you're just going through all of those steps on that turn. If it does say, for example, go to Airytown, then that indicates that it will take longer. So you go up to the point that you can, then you end your turn, and then eventually you make your way to Airytown, all the while you keep this card. Now any kind of path that requires you to do that will have a little hourglass on the arrow, but the text itself will explain what to do anyway. If you do find a creature that you have to attack on one of these lone quests, then you have to defeat that creature in order to proceed. If you don't defeat it, then you can't complete the quest. You've failed the quest, you put it back. If it's a creature that says its attack is ×1 or ×2 or something like that, then you roll one of the die, and whatever number you rolled, you times it by whatever it says for you to times it, and that's where you'll find their attack. Now eventually you'll make your way down to a reward. All you do is pick up that reward and return this quest to where it came from, and that's you completing a lone quest. Now that was a very quick overview of all the rules that we've covered in the previous videos. Of course, more details can be found in those other videos as well as within our rulebook. I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos and learning all about Dead Throne. Now it's time to have some awesome adventures.